Welcome to the STEM Pathways podcast, where we delve into the fascinating world of science, technology, engineering, and math. I'm your host, Rohan Sharma, a passionate explorer of all things STEM. Each episode, we bring you captivating stories, cutting edge research, and inspiring interviews with experts and enthusiasts who are pushing the boundaries of innovation. Whether you're a student, a professional, or just curious about how the world works, join us as we unlock the mysteries of the universe and explore the endless possibilities of STEM. Let's get started. Today, I'll be interviewing Adam Backer, who has a bachelor's in engineering and physics from Brown, a master's in engineering from the University of Cambridge, and a Ph.D. in computational and mathematical engineering from Stanford. How are you doing today?
Doing very well. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for joining me on the podcast. So to start off with, I wanted to ask, what made you choose your major for college?
So I shopped around a lot when I was in college. So when I started college, I actually thought I was going to be an English major. And I decided fairly late in college, I think around my end of my second year, beginning of my third year, that I wanted to focus on engineering. For me, it was mainly a question of finding the right mentor for my studies. I had done summer research lab opportunities, and I just found better mentorship in the engineering department, and for me is very exciting seeing some of the research that I had done independently be valued by others and make its way into scientific journals and that sort of thing.
Yeah. So what was your experience like while getting your bachelor's?
Um, I'd say so. I came from a very small school when I was in high school. So it's a very big shock for me starting in college. Yeah, I mean, I came from sort of a close-knit group of friends that I had known for a long time, and then I didn't know anyone when I started at college. So that part was definitely challenging for me. The I guess like the school, schoolwork itself, that I found for myself it was always doable, but it took me a lot longer than most people to figure it out. So that was sort of different for me than most experiences. So I could generally figure it out eventually. It's just that it took me a very long time. Um, so kind of balancing life, balancing sort of the social aspects of that was always a challenge for me in college. But it's something that you learn how to do.
Yeah. So since you went to Brown, which isn't typically considered like a STEM school, like an MIT or something, I've heard that schools like that give you more of like a liberal arts perspective, even when you are majoring in engineering. What was your experience like on that?
It was yeah, it was fun. Like I said, for me it was I wasn't even sure I wanted to be an engineer until fairly late in college. And even then, fairly late in college, I kept changing my mind a lot. It was like, why am I doing this? Um, so I don't know. It's I guess the jury's still out about whether that's a good sort of life choice or not, because I think all through my career, I kind of wish I had taken more classes or taken more engineering classes when I was in college. So I always found that I was playing catch up. Um, and that's just sort of something I don't know. Maybe it's just life in general. You got to deal with that because the field itself changes. So
Yeah.
the classes you took when you were in college aren't even that important once 20 years later. Um,
And do
for
you think that was mostly because at least like more of a liberal arts focused college, or just because you switched from English to engineering?
I think well, I think a combination of things. One is one is just the skills that are important are different now than they were when I was in college. So that wouldn't have helped me if I'd gone to MIT or, a real engineering school. That's one aspect. And then the other aspect is, I had trouble making up my mind in terms of what I wanted to be doing. So even, sort of right out of the gate when I should have been kind of up to date on things, I wasn't, and I just had to keep learning. So it's kind of, you know, maybe it's good because you just get used to having to learn new things. Um, but yeah, it's yeah, I kind of wish I had focused more when I was in school.
So after getting your bachelor's, what made you decide to get a master's?
So that I was very fortunate to get a fellowship to go to Cambridge. So that was actually through Brown. I don't think they offer the fellowship anymore. I think yeah, they ran out of money, but at the time they had this fellowship where a Brown student could go to Cambridge for a year after they graduated college and study a subject of their choosing. So I was very fortunate to get that opportunity. And I applied and I was offered the chance and I took it.
And what was your experience like being in a whole new country?
Well, I mean, it was the UK is very similar to the US. So in terms of school itself, the education system is very similar. It's structured similarly, and then the kind of the research environment was very similar to what it would be like in a U.S. school. The only difference I'd say is they have like very formal dining halls there, and then they have special formal dinners at the formal dining halls where you have to dress up in robes. And then the professors who are sort of associated with a particular college at Cambridge sit next to you, and you have to kind of listen to them and pretend you're interested for hours at a time.
Yeah. So after doing your master's, what was your experience like while applying to PhD programs?
So I'd applied my last year in college to PhD programs. I was accepted into the computational mathematics program at Stanford, and during my senior year, I asked them if I could defer my acceptance for a year to do the fellowship at Cambridge, and they were okay with that. So that worked out pretty well.
What was your research about during your PhD?
So I changed topics a number of times. I think that's a recurring thing. It took me a long time to figure out what I wanted to do. So I mean, what's interesting is when I was finishing college, I was actually very interested in film and media, and it was kind of at that point in time I wanted to be, I wanted to be a Hollywood guy. I wanted to go to LA and see what happened. And I was very interested in cinematography. So when I got to Stanford, I thought what I was going to be doing was computer graphics. Um, and I guess for me, like I was always very interested in the technical aspect of film and just the image formation process in general. Um, so I kind of my interest shifted over my first couple of years in grad school, and I became interested in optical microscopy. So using regular light microscopes to study biological structures in as non-invasive a manner as possible. So what my research focused on was an emerging area of optical microscopy called super resolution. So that involves imaging structures that are smaller than the wavelength of light. So that's kind of like you're imaging things so small that the wave optics nature of light starts to become very important. And it presents these fundamental limits to how small an object you can actually see. So that's a huge field that's continuing to expand. And that was something that I was very excited about, and I wanted to be pushing the limits in that area. So that's what I eventually did my PhD research in.
Yeah. And what are the main practical applications of that technology?
The main thing is being able to image living cells. So there's plenty of techniques that can do near atomic resolution. You might have heard of electron microscopy. And those techniques are great, but it's always dead specimen. So it's always a static specimen that you're looking at. The main applications of super resolution are being able to visualize a cell while it's undergoing some sort of life process. While it's undergoing, say, cell division, that's a very exciting thing to actually be able to see that that process as it's occurring. My specific area of expertise, there was being able to image the dynamics of individual DNA molecules. So that's not actually a live cell application, but that's where you can actually isolate individual strands of DNA and apply dynamic forces to them. So stretch the DNA and see what happens, and then be able to visualize the mechanical perturbations that occur inside of that molecule.
Yeah. So after getting your PhD, what was your first job?
Uh, well, I felt like PhD research was kind of a job in itself, but the my first job was at Sandia National Labs. So that's part of the government research laboratory system. And there I got, it was a 3-year postdoctoral fellowship that allowed you to embark on a topic of your choosing for 3 years. And that was very exciting. So I worked in New Mexico at the time, and then I also got to do a research collaboration in the Netherlands, where I got to fly over there for a few months at a time, take data, come back. That was probably one of the most exciting periods of my career.
Yeah. And then what was your job after that?
My job after that is my current job at Apple.
And what do you do there?
At Apple, my work mainly supports the Vision Pro, and basically my team looks at the eyepiece of the Vision Pro and does straight light analysis, so understanding all of the optical aberrations that are present in the eyepiece and how to make those better.
Yeah. So for my last question, I wanted to ask what advice you would give someone who's still in high school or early in college, wanting to go down a similar career path as you.
Uh, yeah, I guess, yeah, you told me that was going to be your question. I was thinking about it this whole time, and I'm not sure. I guess uh, I'd say for me, I never really was sure what I wanted to be doing. Um, but what I'd say is probably the best advice is well, I guess I never really made up my mind about what I was going to be doing with my life, but it turned out okay in my case. And one thing I'd say is think about the people that you're going to be working with and spending your time with. So that's I think probably the most important thing is being in an environment that's colloquial and respectful and involves people who sort of want to push limits in terms of the work that they're doing. Um, but are also able to keep a good perspective on things. And then the other thing I'd recommend is definitely take the opportunity to travel and travel for work. I guess I mentioned Cambridge, living in the UK for a while. But I'd say one of the most exciting parts of my career was when I got to be actually doing research with a group in the Netherlands. And that was for me a very exciting experience because it was like we only had a little bit of time on the instruments. There's sort of very fixed time to be taking data. But it was very, very exciting kind of planning things out and then going over there, setting up the experiment and actually having some successful results. So that and then and then being able to enjoy Amsterdam and Europe and all of that at the same time. So that whole experience is very rewarding for me.
All right then. Thank you for joining me.
All right, and that's it.